newspapers. We're joined by the columnist and broadcaster Esther Kraku and by the political editor of Huffington Post, Kevin Schofield. Esther, Kevin, thanks both for coming in. It's nice and early, but we'll crack straight on and we'll keep our interest going by taking a look at some of the front pages. We're going to start with a story about Navalny, Kevin, and of course we've been covering it in quite some detail. Shocking, the news that he has died in that prison.
Yeah.
But I think equally shocking as well, later on in the afternoon yesterday when the news was breaking, that his wife then popped up at the Munich Security Conference.
Yeah, well, she just happened to be at the Munich Security Conference, and obviously was able to give her initial reaction. Unsurprisingly, was very emotional, given the circumstances, and she's basically saying that the international community now needs to come together to effectively get rid of Vladimir Putin. And I mean, you can absolutely understand those sentiments, of course, given the circumstances. The difficulty is actually implementing that. You know, we've had 2 years of hammering Russia with sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine, and yet he's still there, doesn't appear to be going anywhere, and is emboldened enough to carry out something like
he wasn't
this.
defenestrated like most of his opponents, so this was something novel, I suppose. She did remind me of the widow of Jamal Khashoggi, in the way that she was speaking, you know, basically overthrowing Putin's regime. But unfortunately, I highly doubt anything's going to happen as usual. The fact that this man was kept in an Arctic penal colony, it's something right out of 1984.
It's dystopian, yeah.
It's dystopian.
If you read the statement as well from the prison service of Russia, it talked about the convict having died. The emergency service did all they could.
Yeah, exacf. He was walking normally and then he just became unconscious and died.
There's video of him in court yesterday.
He looked fine.
Joking around.
Just so happened to fall ill after going for a walk.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And happening at a time when all attention is on the Munich Security Conference, where I can't help but think that Putin knew that the wife was going to be there. It feels very
almost. And but he, as I say, he feels emboldened. He knows that the international community will talk tough, but in reality, what can they actually do?
There's very little more they can do. There was actually a brief line I saw, I think, of the FT yesterday saying that despite all the sanctions, Russia's economy has been as resolute as it needs to be there.
Despite what we were told two years ago when we were absolutely hammering, sanctioning Russian oligarchs. Absolutely, and yet it's not. It doesn't seem to have
I think
worked.
within 6 months the ruble bounced back.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's more talking happening at the security conference later. We'll see if anything actually comes out. Cameron used strong words, consequences, and we'll see what those consequences actually mean. All right, let's move on to the front of the Daily Mirror, and let's just take us through this headline.
Yes, so Harry says, "I love my family." This is actually a small excerpt from an interview he gave while he was promoting the Invictus Games, and you know they tried to get a bit more information out of him. This is really not that much of a story. He did say he was grateful to see King Charles when he found out about his cancer diagnosis, and he flew straight to see him. There were questions about whether illness can make families reconcile. He did say yes, but he didn't specifically say that would make my family reconcile. So he actually finessed that interview quite well. You didn't really get much out of him. He obviously didn't give any more details about the nature of King Charles's diagnosis, which I'm sure was much appreciated. But I suspect this is a difficult time for him. I don't think this makes the Sussex's estrangement with the royal family any easier.
No, I mean, it's a year ahead of the Invictus Games, so the promotion has started really early for that particular event. But, I mean, the point is, he was estranged from his father. I'm sure that they do want to reconcile. No one wants to
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, especially with his father being ill, and you look at it as a father, you look at it, you think, it's heartbreaking really that you raise a child, and then as they get older, there's an estrangement there, and it's only natural that he will want to spend more time with Harry in his later years, particularly if he's unwell. But you just think, so much water has passed under the bridge in the last few years. We really can never get back to anything like they were before. I doubt it.
Probably going to calcify, and I suspect King Charles is more amenable to a reconciliation, but I don't think that extends to the rest of his family, particularly his stepmother and sister-in-law. But we'll see. It is quite sad. I did notice in the video he was slaying.
He went, I think it's like a skeleton bomb.
Exactly, in minus 10-degree weather, and I was like, wow, that's something I would never do.
Not many people would
absolutely not, but good on him.
He's a prince, I'm sure
willing to do that.
He'll be fine. All right, let's move on to a story that has been, I cycled home and it was 17 degrees the other day.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes. What's this story, Kevin?
Yeah, so it's very worrying indeed. unsurprisingly, really, as you just said, Kamali, we're heading for the hottest February on record. But that's on the back of a record January, December, November, October, September, August, July, June, and May. So this is a trend. I think we can safely say. And now, it can partially be explained by the fact that we're in an El Nino season, which can increase temperatures, and we should have a La Nina coming, which will lower temperatures. But what experts are saying is that because the weather is so erratic at the moment, you can't even predict that. So we don't know for certain.
You can't, but also the other thing as well is that when it comes out of the La Nina, goes back into La Nina, it goes up. The graphs are taking it even
scary, really.
Yeah.
And whether or not you believe that climate change is man-made or not, it's undeniable that there is climate change going on. You've only got to look at the graphs, and the worrying thing is that it's happening much more quickly than all the meteorologists had previously predicted, and they don't know why.
One of the things as well that I'm always surprised about, because hottest in human history is just a terrifying headline. There's not much talk about mitigation, because I guess we're at the point where it's very difficult to work out what our mitigation to this sort of thing is.
Yeah,
right?
well, exactly. And I mean, I think the chart goes back to 1982. So it's about looking probably trends before that, but it's obviously difficult because we can't go back to the 1900s.
And we can't even agree.
Yeah, exactly, and detect what temperature is. But yeah, it is concerning not being able to predict weather patterns as accurately as we would like.
Well, exactly, and global leaders can't even agree on how to maintain the rise to 1.5 degrees. And meanwhile, while they are bickering, it's actually already going through 1.5.
Past it. All right, let's have a little chat about the man himself, former President Trump. Esther.
This story is extraordinary. Because Trump has been ordered to pay $355 million in a fine after a court ruled that he committed business fraud. So I wasn't exactly entirely sure about the kind of the New York State's policy around property speculation, but this case revealed that Mr. Trump claimed his apartment atop Trump Tower was 30,000 square feet, but in fact it was only 10,000 square feet. A change which increased its value from $200 million to $327 million. So regardless of how lenient you can be on property speculation, I think clearly there is something very wrong here. But I think the concern is if he's doing this, because he's always claimed that that's how the game works. Anyone who works in property understands this. You can imagine how many other property firms are doing this.
And perhaps ordinary people as well. But the thing is, he's not doing it to then flip it and sell it. He's staying.
Yeah, well, to get better loans.
Loans.
But I mean, obviously, the bigger implication of this is to do with funding his campaign.
Yeah.
Because there's a deadline as to when he has to pay this money, and he's going to be strapped for cash to funding his campaign. So he might have to go grassroots.
Well, as you know, every time he appears in court, he gets a boost in his funding. Right?
That's the thing. In an ordinary situation, you think this would be bad news for someone running to be president, that this, along with all the other legal problems that he's got, but it doesn't seem to affect his. In fact, it sends his popularity up. He just makes himself out to be the victim. His supporters buy into that narrative, and it doesn't damage him at all.
I was under the impression that property speculation is based on basically how much someone is willing to pay. So if you can find a potential buyer, then it's not really, fraudulent speculation. But to lie about the size of your properties, that's different.
Let's take a bit more from you guys later. Plenty more to come on The Breakfast Show. Stay with us.